And we can start, I think it would be really good to start with inputs, because inputs are quite important. So there's so many different ways to do inputs. And if we go to, these are 3 different approaches that I've seen in different protocols. This is token sets, this is Alpha Homora, and here we have Zapper. And yeah, we can look at Alpha Homora, like what do they do? Like they have here the input, they added, and then they have 3 different options here. They set the max, half, or or a quarter. Then we have Alpha Homora, they just have the input here, option to just set 1 max. Then we have Zapper. We can see Zapper uses the selector on the left side, and then they have max on the left side, and then they have the input on the right side. Yeah, so you can see like everyone does it differently, but in the end, like how do you know that what you're doing is actually scalable? How do you know that you're using the right thing? Sometimes you don't know. Like it depends on. I would say that it depends a lot also on your platform. It depends on your needs, right? But I do feel there could be one way to do it for most of the protocols, and being able to scale that up. So we can go here, and this is what we like to use, and this is what we've been using at our design agency for a while now, this type of input. So this type of input has 4 different components. It has the amount here, it has the placeholder, so the amount is the label, then it has the placeholder, and then you can see the selector for the token, drop down, and then you would be able to set the max. You can see that this is a bit different than the previous example I've showed you. And why we want to do this and set the max here is because by clicking directly here, you don't need like, an extra button here like you've seen at Zapper, for example, or the other platforms. You can just click here, set the max directly here. And the cool thing is that this also allows us to actually add space for a tooltip, which the new user hovers over it, and they get more information on that, which is actually pretty cool. So why we like this type of input is because this type of input is actually very scalable. So if we go to the different situations that you could use this input on, you'd find out that you can use it in the previous way that we were showing you, like when you want to like send tokens, for example, and then you have the 4 components, or you can just use it adding an address, very simple. You can use it in a way in which, for example, in this case, you're repaying a loan. So in this case, you're replacing the maximum with the repay all. And this is very convenient because you're able to just switch this component up here based on your needs. You don't need to add something here like a maximum. You're able to customize this if you're either paying a loan, if you're either setting up a max, if you're either lending to someone, let's say, participating in a LP, whatever it is. And that's the cool thing about it, I would say. Then there's another way that you can actually use this by adding a button here. So let's say this is actually not an input. This is more or less a component which just tells you how many addresses you have delegated to. But you can use the same approach because in here you're able to see that you've delegated 12 addresses, and then you have a button here which manage it. And this is a component, a situation in which you have the blockchain address, and let's say you just need a quick button in order to add this to a list. You don't need a specific big button like we have here. So you can even use the place that you were usually using the selector. You can use it as a way to confirm something or add an address to a list. Let's say you're delegating or you're whitelisting or you're doing something different. So very, very useful. And then another important thing of every input is the fact that you want to get the error messages, right? So the success or error messages. So this input allows you to also get that. So let's say the address is valid, you have this popping up in green, address is valid. So it's very scalable, and that's why we love using it actually, you know, because it is a very scalable component. Another thing I wanted to show you here is with this input is that you would have different situations. And in this situation right here, you have two options, two inputs, right? So because I'm in the current input, you'd see that the space around it is different. Why? Because we're using a shadow highlight to highlight the fact that the user is currently inputting something in this specific component. The moment that the user goes to the address here, it will automatically switch to this. And then we will eliminate the drop shadow from this one. You can use a drop shadow, you can use color, you can use anything else, but be sure to highlight which input the user is currently working in. Another interesting thing here, which I think that you should do, and I haven't seen a lot of people do this. A lot of people here, like they just use, a lot of designers, they just say the next step, preview transaction, right? And they would use this, they would use the preview transaction as disabled until you add the two, until you finish adding the amount and the address, right? But I'm not saying this is bad, you know, like if you just want to be able to speed things up, it's fine, you know, do this. But if you have time, there's something that would add more, that would be even better for the user and would add more value to their experience. What you can do is highlight the next action that the user needs to take, right? So right now the amount is not added, right? So what's the next action? Enter amount. After you enter the amount, what's the next action? Enter address. So using this as real estate to be able to add, to be able to signal to the user what they need to do next is a small, just a small detail, but it adds a lot to the experience. And why it adds a lot to the experience is because the user doesn't even know it. You know, they don't even comprehend this, but it goes into the experience. It just adds to this experience, and it just gives you that extra edge in front of, you know, other people, which is not about that. It's not about, you know, being better than other people. It's, in the end, it's about satisfying the user. And I think that this creates, if you have time to add it, will create that extra experience for the user. And they will feel delighted at the end. You know, they would finish using your product and they would have a good experience. So this is actually a very good approach to have.